Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Tarun, the founder of the Student Perspective, and in this video, I want to share with you guys my experiences as a BSMD student. If you haven't watched my last video, I definitely recommend that you do that, as in that video, I introduce how you can start your college applications the right way, so that you can develop a schedule of when you want to turn in things for your applications, as well as developing a rough list of what colleges you want to apply to. In that video, I hinted at the importance of BSMD programs, and in this video, I'll talk about these programs a lot more in depth. Right now, I'm currently attending the Science to Medicine BSMD program at Texas A&M University. I am majoring in biology and plan to matriculate to the A&M Medical School during the fall of 2022. Let me share with you how I got into this program, how to apply, and what to expect in BSMD programs. BSMD programs, more formally known as Bachelor of Science to Medical Degree dual degree programs, are programs where you earn your BS at a university's undergraduate program and then directly matriculate into that university's medical school and earn a medical degree. Especially if you're thinking about medicine as a long-term occupation, I highly recommend you consider applying for these BSMD programs, as there are many great things about these programs. There are generally two types of BSMD programs: 3+4 and 4+4 programs. And these basically tell you how long your BS and MD will take to complete. For example, a 3+4 program is where it'll take you 3 years to complete your BS and 4 years to complete your MD. In the current program that I'm in right now at Texas A&M, I'm in a 4+4 program, but because of a lot of AP credits that I have coming in, I was able to convert it into a 3+4 program. So that's definitely a possibility when thinking about BSMD programs. It is super rare to see 2+4 programs, but there are some out there. And I don't really recommend you apply to these, as you won't be able to enjoy your undergraduate experience in just 2 years. As you would expect, these programs are highly competitive because you're essentially getting accepted into medical school at 18 years old. But then again, if you're confident that you want to go to medical school, BSMD programs are a really good opportunity for you. On this slide, I've listed some of the BSMD programs across the nation. If you saw my last video, you would know that I applied to Northwestern, Texas A&M, Texas Tech, Rice, and the Baylor BSMD programs. One drawback behind BSMD programs is that there aren't many programs available in the first place, so you have to make sure you do your research beforehand. Additionally, most of the BSMD programs come from smaller public schools rather than elite private schools or larger public schools. What I mean by this is that even though you see Northwestern and Brown BSMD programs on this slide, don't expect there to be one for Stanford or Harvard or Yale or Princeton. That's why I highly recommend you research about these BSMD programs beforehand. I've made sure to attach a couple of links about BSMD programs and a list of these programs across the nation in the description below. So definitely check them out and do your research before you start applying. So a lot of you guys may be thinking, what makes these programs different from traditional pre-med programs? Well, for starters, you don't have to worry too much about GPA, extracurriculars, MCAT, or other obligations that normal pre-med students stress so much about for their applications. While there are minimum requirements you have to meet in regards to GPA or MCAT, these are usually not hard to obtain. For example, in the Science to Medicine program that I'm in right now, I need a 508 or higher on my MCAT, which is around the 70th percentile or so. And it's not too hard to get, especially with all the resources that the Science to Medicine program gives you to get that score. Additionally, as a BSMD student, you don't have to worry that much about filling out the AMCAS application, which is basically like the Common App, but much worse. However, there are some drawbacks of being a BSMD student compared to being a normal pre-med student. For example, as a BSMD student, you have to take pre-assigned classes or majors, while as a normal pre-med student, you can technically do anything academically as long as you take your prereq classes for medicine, I mean. For example, at Texas A&M, I wanted to complete a major in BIMS, which is the Biomedical Sciences program, but the major technically falls under the College of Veterinary Medicine, and the Science to Medicine program only allows majors in the College of Science, which is why I'm currently doing a biology major right now. Additionally, I know a lot of friends who are on the traditional pre-med track and are completing majors in business or engineering, And this is something you can't do in BSMD programs unless you find a very specific BSMD program that allows you to do this. That said, you have a lot more freedom in choosing your extracurriculars as a BSMD student. For example, right now I'm on the club racquetball team and a part of the Sports Management Society at Texas A&M. A traditional pre-med student could definitely do these extracurriculars as well, but they also have to make sure they get in research, shadowing, and volunteer work in order to be a competitive applicant. So they might not be able to spend as much time on hobbies like racquetball or just fun clubs like sports management. Not to say that you don't do research, shadowing, or volunteer as a BSMD student, but these requirements are much less stringent. The last point here under pre-med is pretty debatable, where it says generally more fun, but for the most part, I've heard from others that it's generally more fun to be a normal pre-med student. I don't necessarily agree with this statement right here because right now a lot of my fellow classmates who are normal pre-meds are stressing over classes and extracurriculars while I'm just chilling taking my basic classes to meet the requirements. But I've definitely seen a lot of people who say they don't have as much fun as a BSMD student because they can't choose what classes they want to take. So that's why I put it on this slide because it's something worth pointing out. Now let me get to the specific pros and cons of being a BSMD student. Especially if you're in a 3+4 accelerated program, the biggest benefit of being in a BSMD program is that you save time and money. Especially on the medical track, where things can get very expensive and it can take years before you actually start practicing, saving even 1 year could mean a long way. Additionally, you don't have to stress as much in order to get into medical school, and you have access to resources and faculty as a distinguished BSMD student. For example, at Texas A&M right now, in order to study for my MCAT, the Science to Medicine program gives me a lot of free courses that would normally cost pre-med students thousands of dollars. Additionally, as a Science to Medicine student, a lot of professors know me by name because I'm a distinguished student on campus. Whereas as a traditional pre-med student, it may take longer for professors to get to know you by name. That said, the BSMD program does have its drawbacks. For starters, these programs are super competitive, so you have to make sure you plan your high school career well in advance. Another drawback that people complain about is that you have to be in the same environment for 7 years. I know some students who don't have a problem with this at all, but for others, this could be a big factor when deciding about BSMD programs. For example, I know students who love the College Station vibe, but for others, they might not like that rural town vibe that A&M brings for a prolonged period of time, so they might not be interested in a BSMD program at Texas A&M. The biggest drawback of BSMD programs, however, is that they are binding. Essentially, once you accept your offer into the BSMD program, you have to go to that medical school. So right now, even if I get a 4.0 GPA and a perfect 528 MCAT score, and think I could have a chance of getting into Harvard or Yale, I have to go to A&M Med School because I'm in their BSMD program. This is different from a traditional pre-med student, where as long as you have a competitive application, you can apply anywhere you want to and as many schools as you want to. If you're a BSMD program and want to apply to other medical schools, you have to give up your spot in that program, which is something to definitely consider when you're in a BSMD program. Additionally, one drawback of BSMD programs that isn't talked about enough, in my opinion, is that there's a higher expected dropout or fail rate of BSMD students once they get into medical school. And this may sound confusing, but let me give you an example. A lot of you may not know this, but for a while, UTD used to have a BSMD program where you directly matriculate into UT Southwestern. And this is a very prestigious program, as UT Dallas and UT Southwestern were pretty close to each other, and this was a 7-year program. So a lot of students were applying to get into this program. There are other BSMD programs like the University of Houston BSMD program or the University of Texas at San Antonio BSMD program, but a lot of these are now canceled. And one reason is that because they didn't have enough funding, but also many students in the program would just chill during their undergraduate career and then get caught off guard in medical school because they didn't take those classes that were very similar to medical school during their undergraduate career. In fact, I know some people who were in the middle of their BSMD program and just automatically lost their spot and their guaranteed medical school acceptance due to the program just being canceled. So that's something to keep in the back of your mind, even if it doesn't necessarily happen at your university, and I doubt it will. But like I said, it's something to definitely keep in mind. Here's a timeline of how I suggest you plan out your high school career if you are interested in a BSMD program. This is exactly what I did, and while I'm not definitely saying this is a definitive plan of getting into a BSMD program, it's definitely something worth thinking about. During your freshman and sophomore year, I recommend you take your science classes like biology and chemistry, and also develop strong extracurriculars such as shadowing, clinical volunteering at hospitals, and leadership positions. I hope to make a future video about my exact extracurriculars for college applications so you can see it as a reference guide. So definitely be on the lookout for that video. Many people start shadowing their junior or senior year actually, and while there's nothing wrong with this, especially for a BSMD program, the more medical related extracurriculars you have, the better you are in getting into the program. For your junior year, I highly recommend that you have AP Biology and AP Chemistry done. And whether that means doing one class your sophomore year or doing both of these classes in your junior year and postponing AP Physics to your senior year, I definitely recommend that you have both of these sciences for your subject tests. Subject tests are basically required across all BSMD programs. Almost all BSMD programs require the SAT Math Level 2 subject test and either the SAT Chemistry subject test or the SAT Biology subject test. And I cannot stress this enough, but do well on your PSAT. Do not just see it as an exam that the school offers and just something that's there for scholarships and isn't very necessary. In fact, a lot of BSMD programs, especially the one I'm in right now, do not even offer you an application unless you're a National Merit Scholar. So try your best on that exam. Senior year, you obviously apply to these programs and do essays and interviews, which I'll talk about next. Here are some things to consider for essays and interviews. In your essays, it is crucial that you can explain why you want a career in medicine. After all, you're committing the next 8 years of your life for medicine, and that does not even consider residency or other things afterwards. So make sure you have experiences to back up this why medicine essay. Do not just put some weak answer that I like science or I want to help people without having actual experiences to back up your claims, which is why I highly recommend you're able to start as early as possible. Additionally, you should be able to answer the why BSMD program and what diversity you bring to the school questions, and I'll make sure to make videos on these essays later. As for interviews, there are a wide variety of interviews you can face. You could be interviewed by one person, have a panel interview, or have MMIs, which are basically multiple mini interviews, where you go to around 6 or 7 stations and have an interview for 5 to 10 minutes. Regardless of what interview you do, the key here is to be calm. After all, the interviewers know you're just a high school student, so they cut you a lot of slack when answering questions. Once again, I'll make sure to make a video on interviews for college in general and for BSMD programs as well. So definitely be on the lookout for that. So there you have it. I hope with this video, you have a good foundation about whether BSMD programs are right for you. If you have any questions, make sure you follow me on Instagram at Tarun Santam and you can easily DM me and I'll definitely answer your questions. Additionally, you can follow the Student Perspective on Instagram. The handle can be found on the screen right here. You can also DM us for questions and we'll share with you more perspectives from different BSMD students. Make sure to check out our podcast on our website, which I'll link in the description below. You can find our podcast on Spotify if you just search up the Student Perspective podcast. And on our podcast, we talk about a lot of different perspectives on the pre-med track or about BSMD programs. So definitely check them out. I hope you have a good foundation about BSMD programs from this video, and I definitely hope to see you guys soon.